Welcome to Lesson 7 of Week 12, focusing on resubmission strategy. This lesson addresses one of the most important decisions you make after receiving unfavorable review results. Should you revise and resubmit this proposal, or should you start fresh with something new? This decision has significant implications for your time, your resources, and your chances of eventual funding success. The instinct after rejection is often to immediately begin revising, driven by the time already invested and the desire to vindicate your original work. However, this instinct does not always lead to the best outcome. Some proposals are worth revising, others are better abandoned in favor of new approaches. Making this determination strategically rather than emotionally increases your long-term funding success. This lesson provides frameworks for making the revision decision, factors to consider when assessing resubmission viability, and guidance on when different strategies are most appropriate. By the end, you will have tools for making this critical decision thoughtfully and strategically rather than reactively. The resubmission decision should be made consciously and strategically rather than automatically. Understanding what this decision involves helps you approach it appropriately. Not automatic means revision is a choice, not an obligation. Receiving rejection does not require you to resubmit. You can choose to pursue different projects, different funders, or different approaches. The option to revise exists, but exercising that option should be a deliberate decision based on strategic assessment. Strategic assessment bases the decision on realistic success prospects. What are the actual chances that revision will produce a fundable proposal? This requires honest evaluation of your feedback, your capacity to address reviewer concerns, and the competitive landscape. Wishful thinking about revision success leads to wasted effort. Sunk cost awareness recognizes that past investment should not drive future decisions. You invested significant time in the original proposal, and it is natural to want that investment to pay off. However, the time already spent is gone regardless of what you do next. Making decisions based on past investment rather than future prospects is a known cognitive bias that leads to poor choices. Opportunity cost acknowledges that time spent revising cannot be spent on new proposals. Every hour invested in revision is an hour not invested in a fresh proposal that might have better prospects. Consider what else you could do with the time revision would require. Certain factors suggest resubmission is a promising strategy. When these factors are present, revision efforts are more likely to succeed. Near-miss scores indicate you were close to the funding threshold. If your scores placed you just below the funding line, relatively modest improvements might push you over. Near misses suggest your fundamental approach resonated with reviewers. You just needed to be slightly stronger. These are the most promising resubmission candidates. Fixable feedback means reviewer concerns can be genuinely addressed. You have the capability to provide what reviewers wanted: additional data, clearer explanations, stronger justifications, added expertise. If you read your feedback and know specifically how you would address each concern, revision is viable. Continued fit confirms the funder, and program remain appropriate for your work. The funding announcement still aligns with your project. The funder's priorities have not shifted away from your area. Nothing has changed that would make this a poor match even with a stronger proposal. Sustained commitment means you remain motivated to pursue this specific work. You still believe in the project, want to see it funded, and are willing to invest significant effort in revision. Revision requires substantial energy. Proceeding without genuine commitment produces poor results. Certain factors suggest resubmission is unlikely to succeed. When these factors are present, alternative strategies deserve consideration. Distant scores mean you are far below the funding threshold. Large gaps between your scores and fundable scores require dramatic improvement. Such dramatic improvement from revision alone is uncommon. Distant scores suggest fundamental problems that revision may not overcome. Fundamental concerns arise when reviewers question your premise or the significance of your work. If experts in your field doubt that your research question matters or that your intervention can succeed, their concerns are difficult to overcome. Fundamental concerns about what you propose, not just how you presented it, suggest the project concept itself may be problematic. Unfixable issues exist when you cannot address what reviewers identified. Perhaps they want expertise you cannot add, data you cannot generate, or resources you cannot access. If the problems reviewers identified are beyond your capacity to address, revision will not produce the improvements needed. Changed circumstances mean the project no longer makes sense for your situation. Key personnel may have left. Organizational priorities may have shifted. The field may have moved in different directions. New information may have emerged that changes your approach. When circumstances have changed significantly, forcing the original proposal to fit current reality may not be sensible. Many funders limit how many times you can resubmit a declined proposal. Understanding these limits affects your resubmission strategy. Funder policies often restrict resubmission attempts. These limits prevent the same proposal from consuming review resources indefinitely. Policies vary across funders and sometimes across programs within funders. Knowing the limits that apply to your specific situation is essential for strategic planning. The NIH example illustrates common practice. NIH generally allows one resubmission of a declined application. If your original application and one resubmission both fail, you cannot submit that project again as a resubmission. You would need to submit it as a new application with substantial changes. Other funders have different policies. Strategic implications of resubmission limits are significant. If you only get one resubmission attempt, you want to make it count. Submitting a hasty revision that does not adequately address reviewer concerns wastes your limited opportunity. The stakes of each resubmission are higher when attempts are limited. Policy verification means confirming current rules before making your decision. Policies can change over time. Check the current funder guidelines rather than relying on past experience or general knowledge. Ensure you understand exactly how many attempts you have and what conditions apply to each. The choice between revising an existing proposal and starting fresh with a new application involves trade-offs. Understanding these trade-offs helps you choose appropriately. Revision advantages include building on substantial existing work and addressing known concerns. You do not start from scratch, you improve what you have. Reviewer feedback tells you exactly what to fix. The path to a stronger proposal is defined by the feedback you received. Revision disadvantages include being limited by your original approach and potentially facing reviewer skepticism. You cannot fundamentally reconceptualize within a revision. You are improving the existing approach. Some reviewers may approach revisions skeptically, looking to see if their concerns were addressed rather than evaluating fresh. New application advantages include a fresh start without the constraints of your original approach. You can reconceptualize entirely if that is what is needed. New reviewers encounter your work without preconceptions from previous review. Major changes are possible. New application disadvantages include significantly more work and losing the investment in your original proposal. You essentially start over. The feedback from your declined proposal may not directly transfer to a substantially different new application. The effort required is much greater than revision. Assessing revision viability requires honest analysis across several dimensions. Work through these questions before committing to revision. Feedback analysis examines what would have to change to satisfy reviewer concerns. Go through your feedback systematically and identify every significant concern. For each concern, specify what change would address it. This exercise reveals the scope of revision needed and whether it is achievable. Capability assessment asks whether you can actually make the needed changes. Having identified what would need to change, evaluate whether those changes are within your capability. Do you have the expertise, resources, time, and access needed? Abstract willingness to improve is insufficient. Concrete capability to address specific concerns is required. Impact estimation considers whether making all identified changes would produce a fundable proposal. Even if you address every concern, will the resulting proposal be strong enough to compete? If your original proposal had fundamental weaknesses, addressing specific criticisms may not be sufficient. Estimate the likely score improvement from your planned revisions. Resource requirement analysis determines what revision would actually take. How many hours of work? What additional data collection or analysis? Which team members need to be involved? Understanding the true cost of revision helps you compare it to alternatives and decide whether the investment is worthwhile. When you decide to revise, effective planning maximizes your chances of success. These principles guide productive revision work. Prioritize changes by addressing the most important concerns first. Concerns raised by multiple reviewers deserve highest priority. Concerns affecting major evaluation criteria deserve more attention than minor issues. With limited time and effort, invest most heavily in changes with greatest impact on reviewer assessment. Preserve strengths by ensuring your revision does not weaken what reviewers praised. Identify the elements reviewers valued and protect them. Revision should improve weak areas while maintaining strong areas. Read through your planned changes to verify they do not inadvertently undermine your existing strengths. Document response by tracking how each significant concern is addressed. Create a document listing each concern and your specific response. This documentation serves two purposes: ensuring you address everything systematically and preparing content for your introduction to resubmission. Allow adequate time because rushed revision produces poor results. You are competing against proposals that had full development time. A hastily revised proposal often shows. Build sufficient time into your schedule for thorough revision, review, and refinement. If you cannot allow adequate time, reconsider whether this submission cycle is right for your resubmission. Sometimes revision requires so much new content that you are essentially mixing original and new components. Managing this integration is important for proposal coherence. Substantial revision may require mostly new content when reviewer concerns were extensive. You might keep your overall approach but rewrite most sections significantly. In these cases, the revision becomes a hybrid of original and new material that must be integrated carefully. Integration challenge arises because new and old components must work together seamlessly. A proposal with jarring transitions between thoroughly revised sections and lightly edited sections feels disjointed. When adding substantial new content, ensure it flows naturally with retained content. The proposal should read as a unified whole. Consistency check verifies alignment across the revised proposal. When different sections are revised at different times or to different degrees, inconsistencies can emerge. Numbers mentioned in different places should match. Terminology should be consistent. Claims made in one section should align with content in other sections. Review the entire proposal for internal consistency. Fresh reader test has someone unfamiliar with your revision process review for coherence. You know which parts are new and which are original. A fresh reader does not. If the proposal reads as a coherent whole to someone who did not see the revision process, you have integrated successfully. Timing your resubmission appropriately balances thoroughness with timeliness. Consider these timing factors when planning your revision. Deadline awareness means knowing when the next submission opportunity occurs. Funding cycles have specific deadlines, and you need to target a specific cycle for your resubmission. Work backward from that deadline to ensure you have enough time for thorough revision. Realistic timeline allows enough time for thorough revision before your target deadline. Underestimating revision time is common. Account for the work needed to address reviewer concerns, time for internal review, and buffer for unexpected challenges. If adequate time is not available before the next deadline, consider waiting for the following cycle. Not too quick is important because hasty resubmission suggests inadequate revision. If you resubmit very quickly after receiving feedback, reviewers may wonder whether you had time to genuinely address their concerns. A revision submitted 1 month after feedback may raise questions about thoroughness. Allow time that demonstrates serious engagement with feedback. Not too slow matters because delayed resubmission may face different circumstances. Reviewer panels change over time. Funder priorities may shift. The competitive landscape evolves. A proposal perfectly suited to last year's competition may be less well suited to next year's. Balance thoroughness with appropriate timeliness. Reviewer requests for stronger preliminary data are common and often require substantial effort to address. Planning for this possibility is important. Common weakness in many proposals is insufficient preliminary data. Reviewers want evidence that your approach works, that you can execute your methods, and that your hypotheses have support. Strengthening preliminary data is frequently a key revision task. Strategic collection gathers data specifically addressing reviewer concerns. Generic additional data may not help. Identify exactly what data reviewers wanted and target your collection to provide that specific evidence. If reviewers questioned your ability to recruit participants, collect pilot recruitment data. If they doubted your measurement approach, demonstrate it works. Feasibility demonstration is a primary function of preliminary data. Reviewers want assurance you can do what you propose before they invest funding in your project. Preliminary data reduces perceived risk by showing you have already accomplished relevant pieces of the proposed work. Strong preliminary data converts skeptics into supporters. Time investment for data collection requires significant lead time. You cannot collect meaningful preliminary data in weeks. If reviewers wanted data you do not have, generating it may require months. Factor this reality into your resubmission timeline. Sometimes the right choice is skipping one submission cycle to gather strong data for the next. When reviewers identify expertise gaps in your team, adding appropriate collaborators can strengthen your resubmission. This strategy requires thoughtful execution. Gap identification determines what expertise reviewers found lacking. Did they want stronger statistical support, subject matter expertise you do not have, implementation experience in specific settings? Identify the specific gaps before recruiting to fill them. Strategic recruitment adds team members who specifically address identified gaps. Recruit people whose expertise directly matches what reviewers wanted. A generic collaborator does not help. You need someone whose participation fills the specific gap reviewers identified. Meaningful roles mean new members must have real responsibilities in the project. Adding a prominent name who will not actually contribute substantially is a transparent strategy that reviewers recognize and do not respect. New team members should have genuine roles that use their expertise. Integration ensures new members are genuinely incorporated into the project rather than grafted on superficially. They should contribute to proposal revision, be involved in planning, and have allocated effort appropriate to their role. The proposal should reflect their input, not just their name. The sunk cost trap is a cognitive bias that can lead to poor resubmission decisions. Understanding and resisting this trap improves your decision making. Definition describes sunk cost as making decisions based on past investment rather than future prospects. The time and effort you invested in your original proposal are gone regardless of what you do next. Rationally, past investment should not influence decisions about future action, but emotionally, it often does. Manifestation of the sunk cost trap in grant writing is revising proposals that should be abandoned. The reasoning goes, I invested so much in this proposal that I must see it through. But if the proposal has fundamental problems, continued investment will not rescue it. Throwing good effort after bad is the sunk cost trap in action. The rational standard asks whether you would pursue this project if starting fresh today. Forget your past investment. Looking only at future prospects, is this proposal worth the revision effort required? If you would not start this project from scratch today, why are you continuing to invest in it? Emotional challenge acknowledges that letting go of past work is psychologically difficult. You believed in this project, invested heavily, and wanted it to succeed. Abandoning it feels like admitting failure, but recognizing when to move on is wisdom, not failure. Sometimes the bravest choice is redirecting your energy to more promising paths. Making the resubmission decision thoughtfully improves outcomes. These steps support good decision-making. Gather input from people who can offer valuable perspectives. Mentors have seen many resubmission decisions and can share wisdom from experience. Colleagues may notice things you missed in your feedback. Program officers can provide context about your competitive position. Multiple perspectives inform better decisions. Use frameworks by applying the factors from this lesson systematically. Work through factors favoring resubmission and factors against. Assess revision viability using the questions provided. Structure your analysis rather than proceeding on gut feeling alone. Trust analysis by letting your systematic evaluation guide your decision rather than emotion. Fear of abandoning past work, frustration with reviewers, or attachment to your original vision can distort judgment. When analysis points in a different direction than emotion, give analysis significant weight. Commit fully once you have decided. If you decide to revise, pursue revision wholeheartedly with full effort and commitment. If you decide to move on, redirect your energy fully toward new projects. Half-hearted pursuit of either path produces poor results. Whatever you decide, commit to it completely. Let us summarize the key points from this lesson on resubmission strategy. Resubmission is a strategic choice requiring careful analysis rather than automatic response to rejection. Not every declined proposal should be revised. Some are better abandoned in favor of new approaches. Making this determination wisely improves your long-term funding success. Decision factors include score proximity to the funding threshold, whether reviewer concerns are genuinely fixable, continued fit with the funder and program, and your sustained commitment to this work. When these factors align favorably, resubmission is promising. When they do not, alternative strategies deserve consideration. Avoid traps, particularly the sunk cost trap that makes decisions based on past investment rather than future prospects. The time you invested in your original proposal is gone regardless of what you do next. Base decisions on realistic assessment of future success probability, not on desire to vindicate past effort. In our next lesson, we cover writing the introduction to resubmission. This one-page document is crucial for successful revision, as it demonstrates to reviewers that you took their feedback seriously and made substantive changes. You will learn how to craft this document effectively. Practice exercise. Think of a proposal you have had declined or imagine one based on your work. Work through the resubmission decision framework from this lesson. What factors favor resubmission? What factors argue against? What would your analysis-based decision be?